slippery like an eel. He's not gone. And I'm going to kind of explain why. I mean, in the polls, he's just, getting decimated. It looks like he's going to, his government be wiped out if an election was held tomorrow. The problem is an election, if it's held, is probably going to be 2 years away. And I'll explain why. So let's talk about Canadians. Everybody's an environmentalist, or at least they are until it comes time to pay the bill. Then the tune changes dramatically. So, the Trudeau regime, lately they've been discovering the hard way that support for the government's continuing with its free fall in public support. Climate change, it doesn't mean a damn thing to Canadians when they can't make the rent or fill the refrigerator. Canadians are drawing that link now between the economically damaging climate taxes and policies and the difficulty they're having in making ends meet. And they're taking it out on the federal Liberals. Now, recent polling, though, shows that still 72% of Canadians are concerned about climate change. Concerned. But, they aren't dismissing it or whatnot. But when you measure by what's your top issue, only 5% of Canadians see that as their top issue. It's among the issues, but it's not at the top. Inflation is at the top right now at 20% of Canadians, with healthcare at 14%, housing at 13%, and the economy at 11%. So building windmills while political leaders virtue signal at lavish overseas climate conferences doesn't sit well with Canadians who can't find a family doctor or just one paycheck away from losing their homes. And the Trudeau government stubbornly remains blind to the sentiment of Canadians as it continues to pile on more regulations and taxes, contributing to more inflation. And public support for the Liberals continues to collapse. Like I said, if an election was held today, they'd be obliterated. Now, while Canadians are sick and tired of the ineffective Liberal policies raising the cost of living, one has to ask, though, if Canadians are ready to face the austerity that comes with fiscal responsibility. See, among those who polled who felt the country needs to transition away from carbon-based energy generation, only 5% of them felt the price of that transition should be paid by consumers. Well, 32% felt that industry should pay for the price for this transition through taxes and regulations. And another 18% felt the government should have to pay for the changes. Well, a quarter of the respondents felt nothing should be done and the technology will fix things over time. Well, what the vast majority, obviously, of respondents don't seem to understand is they're always ultimately going to be personally paying the bill, no matter which way you do it. There's no magical form of government money generation aside from taxation. Likewise, corporations, they get their funds ultimately from consumers. There's no escaping the fact that individuals eventually end up paying the bill. The only thing people are escaping is reality. Conservative supporters, they have to look at those numbers and remind themselves not to get complacent while the Liberal numbers plunge. You see, clearly electors are fed up with the Liberal government, but it doesn't mean they're ready to embrace austerity either. In the next election, the Trudeau Liberals are going to promise to save the world from climate change. They'll promise citizens they won't have to pay the bill to do so. It'll be a clear lie, but we have a large segment of the population that would rather be lied to than face the hard realities of what they have to pay for. Trudeau can't seem to go a day without another spending announcement, despite the bleak federal outlook and a huge growing federal deficit. These actions aren't simply fiscal incompetence, though, as there's plenty of that to be found in the Liberal ranks. But no, this is strategic. What they're doing is establishing programs and getting an ever-increasing number of Canadians dependent upon them. They're spending generations, the next generations of Canadians, into debt to try and buy electoral love. And you know what? It might work. You see, Conservatives have to campaign carefully. Calling for the elimination of spending programs and entire government departments might sell well to the Conservative base. But remember, there's going to be imagery of thousands of people being laid off, and it's going to be tugging at the heartstrings of the Canadian swing voters. Remember, they don't like fiscal reality. They just want more promises and more shiny things. The Conservatives shouldn't give up on campaigning based on fiscal responsibility. This nation desperately needs it, and it'd be disingenuous to hide such intentions while campaigning. They just have to be really careful about it. Canadians need to be eased back into reality. The campaign in the next couple of years needs to be respectfully educational. People need to understand the need for spending restraint and how they're ultimately going to benefit from that. In the early 1990s, we faced double-digit interest rates. That shocked voters into supporting balanced budgets as debt servicing costs exploded. And Canada's pouring, $40-50 billion a year into debt servicing. The waste of maintaining such a large debt still isn't number one in the minds of many voters, though it should be. The Trudeau Liberals have fostered dependency, complacency, and fiscal ignorance among Canadians during their term in power. The Conservative government, or the Conservative up-and-comers, need to reverse that damage, but it's got to be done with care. People are seeing the need to get things back in fiscal order, but they still don't understand that they're ultimately going to have to pay all those bills. Trudeau could conceivably campaign on unicorn power and get away with it in 2025 unless the Conservatives have built a voter base of informed realists by then. So until then, guys, don't dance on the grave of the Liberal government yet. Don't take any polls for granted. Like it or not, the Liberals are not out of the picture yet.